over here.
All right, so we told you who we were. Who's here? If you are a county worker, either raise your hand or stand up. Awesome.
So vast majority.
If you are a parent, raise your hand or stand up. Who else would I be missing?
Are you in the YJ field? All right, there we go.
Oh, nice.
State.
I think you were in the last presentation that I was in too. Anybody else not from Wisconsin or not like living in Wisconsin? No? All right. So here are our objectives. We're going to, again, give you an overview of family-centered treatment and tell you where it's provided in Wisconsin, tell you where it's provided around the country. We're going to talk a little bit about YJ in Wisconsin. We're going to talk about really what we see as our recipe for success, like adding family-centered treatment as a service for families that are also involved with youth justice. We have some testimonials from our local providers. And then the fun stuff's at the end, probably the last 30 minutes or so. We're going to show you some of our FCT experiential activities. So what is family-centered treatment? I promise you guys I'm not going to read everything to you. But this is just kind of an overview of what family-centered treatment is. It's an evidence-based intensive trauma treatment. It's done in the home primarily. And it's practitioner and family developed. So it was not developed in a lab. So a lot of other evidence-based practices or therapies are something that are created in a lab. This was just created out in the field. We've been doing it for over 30 years. We went into families' homes, tried a bunch of things. Some things worked, some things didn't. So what came out of that were the things that worked. It's how family-centered treatment was developed. Very simple, practical, common sense solutions. Very much delivered via activities. So you're not going in and doing 2 hours of family therapy each day in these families' homes. It's designed to increase family health and well-being, promote attachment and resiliency. We build upon and identify the family's strengths and build on those. We address systemic trauma by really trying to address the underlying causes, not just the symptoms. And then it's effective as both a stabilization as well as a reunification service. So if we have a kid that's, in danger of being removed from their home for whatever reason, FCT loves to be able to get in there and provide the support to the family so that they don't have to be removed. And vice versa, if you have a kiddo that has been out of the home for whatever reason, FCT can be used to really support that reunification and make it successful. Can also be used with adoptions. So if there's a family that is being adopted into a new home, this is a great service that it's not just one kid or one person in the family that is the client, it's the whole family. The family is the client. And now Stacy's going to talk a little bit about the 4 phases of family-centered treatment.
Okay, so there are 4 phases to our family-centered treatment. Our first phase of treatment is our joining and assessment. That's really where we have the opportunity to get to know families through a specific set of activities. We typically, in Jefferson County, we avoid using the word assessment because that tends to kind of turn families off when they hear assessment. Really, it's about getting to know them. How did they get to where they are today as a family unit, as individuals, and then we kind of build on those areas. We find out what the family's strengths are, what are their needs, what are they hoping to have things look different. Our second phase of treatment, I always love to call restructuring the meat and potatoes of FCT. This is where we do a lot of the work. We identify patterns, we practice new skills, we really helped them to implement those goals that they identified at the beginning of treatment. Value change is a unique component to FCT in terms of like most treatment modalities, treatment stops at restructuring. That's where the behaviors have disappeared, they're not seeing them anymore, so then in FCT we go to value change. That's where we help make sure all those new skills, all those new behaviors stay where we put them. And then it allows us to tweak things. Maybe we find something worked but is not working exactly the same, so we have time to adjust it. Generalization allows for us to make sure that everything is in place, help them prep for discharge from our program, from completion from our program, and plan for any future challenges that they might have.
I'll say a typical round of FCT is anywhere from 6 to 9 months. Oh, I should probably use the microphone. 6 to 9 months. So joining, usually we want people to get through that in about a month. Restructuring is definitely the longest phase. So that's really where you're going in there, and like Stacey said, it's the meat and potatoes of treatment. It's going in anywhere from 2 to 3 months. Can be longer. Value change is about a month typically, and then generalization is usually only a few weeks. And then, again, family-centered treatment, there's so much information. We didn't want to overwhelm you with a million slides. Please visit our website right here, familycenteredtreatment.org. There's so much information on our website as well if you want to learn more. So, and there it is. The website's up there again at the top, just in case. So here are the 5 pillars of family-centered treatment. We feel it's very important to treat all families with dignity and respect. You know, you're allowing us to come into your home. So first, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come into your home. We really honor the function of the behavior. So again, we're not just going in and treating the behaviors. Like, we really want to get to the underlying cause. We want treatment that's relevant and useful. So again, it's very activity-based. This is not your typical sit-down talk therapy. You might be outside playing some game in the front yard, and believe me, that is family therapy. Internalization over compliance. So again, that really relates to our value change phase, where we really want families to see to get something out of it. We're not just doing this because, oh, my social worker told me how to do this. And then we really believe in the power of giving and restoring self-worth. Everybody, every family has something to share. One of the things we'll talk a little bit later that all families complete in the 3rd phase of treatment is the Family Give Back Project. And it's where they're pulling upon their values and their strengths, and they're giving something back to their community. Maybe they're going to tell their story. I'm trying to think of some of our really creative Family Give Back projects over the years.
We've had families who will write letters to prospective families considering FCT and why they think the family should engage in our treatment model. We've had families do Mayday baskets for a nursing home. We've had families volunteer at a homeless shelter or at a soup kitchen. So it really is unique to each family.
Oh, I remember a really good one. We have a couple FCT workers here. A really, really cool one, I think, from last year. A child was really interested in wood carving. Yeah. And so they created walking sticks and like donated them to a nursing home. And I was like, how creative is that? That was so cool. So again, engagement's really important with family-centered treatment, really with any service that you're going to be providing to a family. If you don't connect, how are we going to correct anything? It's more important just to be there, I think, and hear their story.
Okay, and so one of my favorite things about FCT is our guarantees and values. So this is something that we share with every family, and this is really what I believe gets our families connected with us, is that we always give direct and honest feedback to all of our families. And then we ask in return for them to give us direct and honest feedback. So if we're doing a specific activity with their family, we want to know what they think of that activity. Did this fit for their family? Did they like the activity? What worked? What didn't work? So we want to know how their successes are playing out. We take responsibility for our mistakes. We're human. We're all going to make mistakes. So we take the chance to acknowledge our mistakes. If we're late for a session, if we missed the mark on an activity, we're going to take ownership for that. That shows that level of respect that we want families to have with us. Next, all families are the experts, right? All the families that we work with, they're the experts on their own stories. So we never come in and assume we know more than them. So we really partner with them in their stories. The next thing we do is we ask permission. We never do activities with their children without their permission first. So making sure that if we're doing solution cards or eco maps, those are things we ask to do with their children. The last thing is transparency. So we are always transparent about meetings. So if we are meeting with their youth justice worker, they're part of that meeting. If we're meeting with CPS, they're part of that meeting. In fact, one of the things that I found unique to this model was if we ever have to make a CPS report, we typically ask the parent to make it with us. That was not something I had ever done working in this field. And so that is one thing that we do, and it actually, believe it or not, goes quite well. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we do is we write collaborative documentation. They know exactly what is going into my case note. So we write that together, they give me the approval, and then that is what becomes my documentation.
And we're always asking, this goes with the last one with the transparency, we're always asking them for feedback. Where it's, what worked? What worked in this session? What didn't work? What did you like? What did you not like? So you guys heard me talk earlier, Family Centered Treatment Foundation, that's the nonprofit where I work. We have been doing this for over 30 years. Not me personally, not quite 30 years, but soon. And we've served over 40,000 families across the country. And so we at the foundation, we really believe that all human service organizations should have the ability to provide affordable, high-quality, evidence-based practices with fidelity. And here's just a really cool map to show where we are across the country right now. We have close to 40 licensed organizations with 90-plus sites. And so some of our, St. Francis is one of our larger organizations, and they're in multiple states. I think it's always just really cool to see. Whenever I check the map, I'm like, all right, what are our new states? So it looks like we're trying to get in right now with like Louisiana and Oklahoma and Tennessee. We tried to get into Alaska. We're still trying, but we're not quite there yet. And Stacy said she wants to go to Hawaii whenever we get out there.
Yep.
Oh, it's coming. Yep, you guys are in Wisconsin.
It isn't.
Oh, it should be. Good catch. See, we clearly did not run through this. I don't know where the map's from. But yeah, we've been in here for a while. So here, I'm going to show you. Hold on, I'll go back. But here's the timeline of where, how we got started in Wisconsin. So we have 4 counties where FCT is provided, like kind of at the county level, at the human services level. Started with St. Croix County in 2017. And then Lutheran Social Services started in 2018. Jefferson County started in 2019. That was when Stacy started. Pierce County was in 2021. And then our newest org is Washington County, and they started last spring. Okay. Just a very brief overview of some of our historical outcomes for family-centered treatment. These are all of our sites. Very successful outcomes out of all of our FCT families. 89% had a positive placement at closure. For those families that completed all 4 phases of treatment, that increased up to 98%. And then 94% of families had engagement, so that means they had more than 5 contacts in the first month of treatment. And then family voice. So we always survey our families at the end of treatment, and almost 90% of families agree that FCT improved their family life. And that's really the most important metric for us, is like, were you able to learn skills that are gonna translate over for, maybe you have a baby in the family. Well, guess what? In 12 years, they're gonna be a preteen. And hopefully you've been able to learn those skills that you can then use again. This is, again, one of those for anybody that's really into the research. We have a whole research department at the foundation. SCT has been found to be very cost effective. It's a lot cheaper than group home care, and less traumatic for children. We want to get kids. We know that kids do better when they're with their families most of the time. So we want to get them back there. Just another little fun map to show the actual counties being served in Wisconsin. And these were just more of the specific Wisconsin outcomes for 2023 so far. So again, really high engagement numbers, very high successful outcome numbers. 95% of families agreed that FCT improved their family life. And then 67% of families completed all 4 phases of FCT. And that's a really high number. FCT is a very intense service, even though it's short term. We're in families' homes 4 to 6 hours a week, every week for about 6 months. So for 67% of families to complete all 4 phases, that's a really high number. That's way higher than it is in North Carolina.
Okay, so some of the things that we address during FCT services, I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. Obviously, one of the biggest is juvenile delinquency. That is one that we often deal with significantly. We deal with trauma, neglect, substance use, school problems, mental and behavioral issues, and parenting skills. Those are among the most common ones that we work with. So I'm not going to read through all of this, but basically this is just summarizing kind of what youth justice is for the state of Wisconsin. So the primary goal of youth justice is to help kids get back on track. We really want to help, help them maintain, rehabilitate, address treatment needs. A lot of it comes down to treatment. And so that's a big part of what FCT is doing involved in the YJ system. So this is just some data for YJ specific to the number of referrals. So you'll look at 2022, there were over 8,000 kids involved across the state of Wisconsin in youth justice. And so far up to the end of August of this year, over 6,000 kids were involved. And so these are just some of these are specific to our Jefferson County. So we have, obviously you can see delinquency is the highest percentage of what we work with in Jefferson County, so that is often what we see. So these are specific outcomes to Jefferson County. These are the things that we as a county have seen. We have seen a decrease in future referrals. We have seen increased school attendance, increased regulation of moods, increased support at home, increased parental stability, and increased involvement across treatment. So kids find it beneficial.
I think families find it beneficial.
They sure do.
We were joking earlier with some of the FCT providers that a lot of times, especially in Wisconsin, once you're in there, it's like time to discharge. You've completed services. Your family has successfully completed services, and they're like,
do you have to leave?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't. They don't want to leave. They
don't
have really become. You almost become
a part of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here are some of our testimonials. I'm going to let Stacy do the Jefferson County one.
So our testimonial comes from our former Human Services Director, Kathy Culley. So she is the one who spearheaded the idea of FCT. So she said, I believe every child deserves a fair and equitable chance, as does every family. We need to be on a continuous quest to find and implement the best possible options for that to happen. FCT has been rigorously studied. The proven outcomes show that families can stay together and be reunited. Further, FCT offers workers robust and hopeful interventions. FCT gives us scientifically proven ways to
operationalize?
Yeah, that word. Our deepest values. If only every family could access, we would change the entire landscape of CPS and mental health.
And then this is from Kelly Bell. She is the FCT supervisor over in Washington County. We have been utilizing FCT in collaboration with our youth justice team and have found great success in not only partnering with the various programs associated with these youth, but also with the families caring for them. FCT has a great philosophy of not only treating the child, but also treating the entire family unit. FCT gives families the tools and confidence not only to handle the current struggles, but teaches it to them in ways that allows them to handle future hurdles they may face with any of their children. We have seen a significant decrease in trauma symptoms, prevented several children from being placed in a residential facility, as well as successfully treated a child with a wraparound team and prevented them from being registered as a sex offender. We are proud to offer FCT to our community. This is pretty powerful.
So one of the things that I enjoyed doing as part of this presentation was to go back in my career and reach out to some of the families that I had worked with as an FCT practitioner who also were receiving services through YJ. So one of my families had to say, we would not have been able to do therapy as a family had we not had FCT. FCT allowed us to have therapy where we needed it most, in the home. Our therapist spent countless hours with us. She really became like family to us, which is true. We spend so much time with families, we do become an extension of their family. Another family had to say, FCT helped me support my nephew. Had our FCT therapist not been here, I don't know that I would have been able to keep my nephew in my home until he was 18. FCT was everywhere we needed them to be. FCT was such a blessing, as was our therapist. She was like family to us. This is probably one of my favorite stories to talk about, because when this referral came across my desk, he was being placed back with his father in our county, and they told me there was no way we were going to maintain placement. Absolutely not. This was a lost cause. So I took that as a challenge and said, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. He managed to remain in the home until his 18th birthday before he moved to live in a group home. So success is absolutely possible. And then FCT was helpful. We needed just a little extra support to navigate some tough stuff, and our therapist was able to help us look at things differently. We had a great experience. And then just some more great things that people had to say about FCT. One that I like is FCT changed a lot of things for our family. I was skeptical about this, and the intensity seemed like a lot, which is something we hear very often. 4 to 6 hours is a lot of treatment to families who are used to maybe an hour a week. But it goes quickly. And at some point, it just clicks. And you see things getting better. And I think that's one thing as a clinician that we often see, is when it clicks for our families. That is a fun, rewarding part of the work that we do.
And I was able to actually go out and see probably all these families at some point,
yes.
Because part of the implementation of FCT, to make sure that we're doing it the same across all of our different sites, is that your FCT consultant, there's close to 10 of us now, we go around and visit all of our organizations and then go out and observe staff in the field. And so I was able to certify Stacy as an FCT practitioner, and now she is certified as an FCT supervisor, and she is working to become certified as an FCT trainer so that she can go out and certify all of her staff in the field.
So one of the other things that with partnering with our YJ team was how much they loved our FCT program. In Jefferson County, FCT is captured under our CCS program, so Comprehensive Community Services. So one of the things that has been challenging for some of the YJ families is not everybody is MA eligible. So one of the things that our youth services supervisor, Jesse Godick, went out and did was get a grant that would allow us to provide FCT to families who have private insurance. So I'm going to read the last little bit of what she had to share with me. It says, lastly, FCT and YJ have partnered so well since FCT's inception at Jefferson County. It was actually through another Youth Justice Innovation Grant that helped make FCT a true reality at Jefferson County, as it paid for some of the startup costs. In summary, we felt it was important for all families to have access to FCT. It was a missing piece in our service array, and this alliteration of YJ Innovation Grant gave us a way to solve that issue.
We in Washington County, they're using a very large, I think SAMHSA grant. It was basically through YJ, and so they have had the kind of the benefit of being able to do their startup costs. It was already covered in the grant, so they could just kind of hit the ground running. Because you can bill FCT through CCS, but then you're engaging or enrolling families in multiple services, and sometimes they don't need need to be enrolled in multiple services. Sometimes they do, but not always. So it is nice when we have the ability to find these grants that will help pay for FCT. All right, now to some of the fun stuff. Do you want me to go ahead and pass out the solution cards? Okay.
Casey is going to pass out solution cards.
So we're gonna.
You get to experience FCT today.
Yeah. So this is something that we do with every single member of every single family that we work with, usually probably in the first week of getting services started. So you kind of go in, you do your joining session, typically just with the caregivers, and then you're doing a solution card with them, and then you ask, and you turn around and you're doing a solution card with all of the members of the family in the next couple of sessions. So we're going to walk you through that process.
Yes, we are. Okay. So one of the first things that we do with our solution card is you can put your name on the top of it. And so you'll notice if you have an actual copy of it or if you can sort of see our copy is there's usually 6 different lines for you to put information on there. So one of the ways that I like to explain this to families is this is kind of like a coping plan, right? Like different things come up, different things happen in your family. So when you're thinking about something that helps you in a tough time, whatever that looks like, what is something you use to help you cope? And sometimes families have a hard time thinking about what a coping skill looks like. So sometimes I will say, do you have a person that you like to reach out to? Do you have someone who is a good sounding board for you or someone who supports you? Or maybe it's you like to run or go for walks. It could be a physical activity. It could be you like to color or draw. So those are some of the things that oftentimes families will put on here. So we have them fill out the top 5. And that 6th one that is on our card is always your FCT therapist. That is who they reach out to. If they have tried all 5 of those things, they then reach out to their FCT therapist. So we will give you a few minutes to create your own solution card. So fill out your top 5. What are you using to help cope? Okay, if you're willing to share, what is something that you put on your solution card? Take a hot bath. That's a good one. Anyone else? Texting with your friends. Yep. That's a good one. I don't think I've ever had that one.
I talk to myself all the time too,
Right.
but I would never think.
You like expert advice, right? Anyone else? Take a walk. Yeah. We have a lot of people who find fresh air to be very helpful.
What about like your pets? Could maybe be a stressor.
What? Wash the dishes. Yep. Arts and crafts. Absolutely.
One thing we'll have our families do is if, because we do these again at the very beginning of treatment, it's a working document. You can always change it. So if we have a crisis or something occurs, we want to revisit the solution card and say, okay, what on here worked and what can we add to it? Like we want it to be a running list of things that work. And also if you're having a crisis at 4 a.m, maybe we're not going to let the teenager go for a walk outside. Like that might not be as safe, so it's like you might want to have a different solution card depending on the age of the kid, the situation, the scenario. We also like the families to, once they do their solution card, the FCT therapist usually takes a picture of it so that you have it, so that if you do get a phone call, you can say, have you looked at your solution card? And they're like, I don't know where it's at. I can't find it. And you're like, here, let's go through it together. But then I always follow up in the next session and say, what can we add to this? What did we learn from this situation? And then I like the families to really share their solutions with each other. So something that Stacy put on hers, like maybe I didn't put it on mine, but I'm like, oh, that does sound like a really good idea. I'm going to try that next time. You could have a different solution card for the school as well if kids are maybe struggling at the school, where the things that you can do at home, maybe you're not allowed to do at school. So you can definitely, it's simple. You can have a Post-it note. You can have an index card. It doesn't have to be on the fancy piece of paper that says solution card.
One of the other things that I found too is we occasionally will get a family who says, I don't have any coping skills. I don't have anything that I can put on this piece of paper. And we always say, that's okay, because that's what we're here for. And so the only thing that may be on their solution card is my telephone number. And if I can get them to call that telephone number, then we've made a connection. So that allows us the ability to then help them in the future fill out that solution card.
Do we want to move into eco maps?
Yes, everybody gets to create an eco map. So if you want to flip over whatever you wrote your solution card on.
Oh, some people might need a bigger piece. If you have an index card, if you can just maybe grab a piece of paper out of your notebook and flip it over, because you need a regular size sheet of paper.
This is true. I was working with what we had.
Yeah.
We're flexible.
Very flexible. You're gonna have them walk through, or do you want one of your staff to?
Casey's like looking at me like, don't pick me. I'll walk you through it. Okay, so one of the things you'll see up here where it says Bart. Okay, so Bart Simpson here did an eco map. So you're going to draw a circle in the center of your page, just a small one. Put your name in the middle, just like Bart did. I usually put the age in there if it's a child, just so that I can, it helps us remember how old kids are. And then you're going to notice, starting at the top of Bart's, for example, is his dad Homer. So when we talk about eco maps with our families, we talk about things that they find positive or good in their life. However you want to phrase it to families, because some kids view it differently, some parents view it differently. So when you think about your own personal life, what is the first positive thing that comes to mind? It can be family, it could be pets, it's whatever it is in your family for you. It's individualized. There's no right or wrong answer.
And it doesn't have to be a person.
It does not.
The literature, they call them life domains, but that's kind of hard to explain to an 8-year-old what a life domain is. So it's just people, places, things, all the different things that make up your world. This is your personal map of your world.
And then we start working clockwise. And so the next thing that you're going to put on there is, what's the next thing in your life that's positive? Or good? Or semi-good? Because sometimes kids have a hard time identifying something beyond one good thing.
And then usually if people, I have them go ahead and draw out usually about 12 circles, kind of like a clock around. And you say, okay, now I want you to fill in all the other bubbles with all the different things that make up your life. And at this point, it doesn't have to be only positive or only good or only supportive, like all the things that make up your life.
And sometimes I'll offer thoughts for kids because they kind of have a hard time thinking, well, what's in my life? So sometimes for kids it will be school. It might be friends. They might be involved in a specific activity, whether it's sports or a club. It might be an after-school job, church, a youth group. So whatever makes up their life. Could be stressors. Maybe they're involved in the YJ system. Maybe they're out of home and really want to go home. Same for parents. Parents might have finances on there. They might have CPS on there. They might have the criminal system.
And then a lot of times if, people get maybe 10 circles filled out and they have 2 more, then I'm like, what about hobbies? What do you like to do for fun? Maybe you haven't done it in a while, but it's, again, trying to help them see that there is room in their life to do the things that they love to do.
And I've had families who will have a number of circles unfilled, and that's okay. It's not a hard and fast rule. There's some flexibility to it, and right now that's where we're at. And so we will make room for that. I always tell them it's room to grow.
Mm-hmm. This is another one of those activities where we do it in the first phase of treatment. This is usually probably by the first and second week of treatment, we're getting eco maps completed. A lot of times what I'll do towards the end of treatment is I'll have them redo an eco map, and then I'll show them side by side to show, like, maybe the first time they did it, they had a lot of, and we use different colors to identify the relationship between each item. So typically, like, red is your stressor color, and green is your positive color. And so a lot of times if they started out with a lot of red at the beginning of services, towards the end, I'll have them do the activity again to demonstrate, like, wow, look how much your world has changed. And it could just be their perception of their world has changed. Now they feel like they have, additional skills to be able to deal with their stressors in a more adaptive way. I actually have, again, I started my career in FCT and learned to do eco maps. Now I do a little bit of outpatient on the side, and I do an eco map with every single person that I see in my outpatient practice as well. And they find it really useful. And it's, again, it's a really neat tool, and it's simple. You can do it with even younger kids. You could just use stickers. You could have them draw.
I've had them use magazines, cut out pictures to help them identify. And so then as we go through the domains with kids and adults alike, we talk about what that domain means to them. What does it mean to have your family on there? What does it mean to have school on there? And have them tell us a little bit more about why that is on their eco map.
You could even ask them, like, what is it that you'd like to change about this relationship? So, you could have multiple lines. You could have something. I always give people the example of like my mom. Of course, I'm going to put my mom on there, and I'm going to put a positive line on there. I love my mom. I'm also going to put a stressor line on there because my mom stresses me out a little bit. And it's okay to have, you can feel more than one way about any situation in your life. And so I think that's for kids to be able to do. They're like, oh, it can be both? Yeah, it can be. It definitely can be.
And then one of the other things I always do with, particularly with kids, why are we doing FCT? What's the goal of it? Like, what are they hoping to get out of it? Because this kind of, I like to think, starts the process of thinking about what they want to be different. So sometimes they'll tell me, I'm here because, my YJ worker is making me. I'm here because my mom said I have to be. Those are often the ones that we start with. And then there are sometimes kids who are like, I don't know why you're here. I don't know why I'm here. And that's okay. We work with that.
And if you get a family that's really, really into FCT and they really, really like it, we have done for an eco-map sharing session. So you do each eco-map individually. So this is something that you do. You pull everybody aside. You might be taking them out to the back porch or into a room where they feel like they can share without somebody eavesdropping. And then we may say, is this something that you feel like you could share with your family? So that way we know what's stressing you out. That way we know you're really worried about school. Like you're really worried about math class. It's just good for your family to know what's stressing you out and what you have going for you in your life so they can support you better. And sometimes, if you have a family where there's maybe DV or something like that, maybe we wouldn't share it in those situations. So you just have to, again,
use your judgment.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Does anybody want to share anything that they put on their eco map? Anything that they put on there as a positive? Or maybe just everybody tell us what your first thing that you put on there was. Yeah. We just go around. I'm gonna start with you, Jamie. What'd you put as your first thing? Your kids? Point at you, Ashley. Okay.
Best friend in bubble. And husband in your bubble. Shocking.
What'd you put, Sam? That was the first thing you put on there? Okay. You guys should know they're best friends. They're the first ones. All right, I don't know anybody else's name. So, what was the first thing you put on your eco map? Oh, I love that.
I like that one.
That would be a great thing to put on a solution card as well.
Yeah. Your mom. Your pets. Yes. Husband and daughter. Like that. Whichever's fine. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Family school. Pets.
It's your eco map.
It's your eco map. No judgment.
You don't have to share it with your family if you don't want to. Oh, I love that.
I don't know that I've ever had.
I don't think I have either. That's why I wanted to do this to get more ideas.
Yeah. Family.
Health. That's a really good one.
That is a good one. We won't tell. Family. Yeah. Mom friends.
That's a good
They're
one.
so important.
I'm going to put that on my next solution card,
Same.
just for me. So important.
Yeah.
I like it. What did you put? That's awesome. So, and then our next activity that we do, and this is only done with the caregivers, it's the family life cycle. It's really just a glorified timeline. And so we sit down with each caregiver individually, if it's a two-parent home, and we give them a piece of paper that looks like a timeline, and we ask them to identify just different events throughout their life, things that they've remembered in their, starting with their childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, if they've made it into older adulthood. That's the first part that usually takes probably about an hour. But then we ask very specific questions based on that, based on what they filled out. So we're kind of asking them, like, how does your parents parent you? How would you have parented you? Like, looking back now as an adult. We have a very large list of questions to pull from, but it just really helps us illustrate how you were parented or how you grew up really influences how you parent now as an adult. And so that's something that we do individually, and that is not typically shared like with the children. But we also ask them, what is something that you want to keep the same, like in your current family, something like that you want to keep the same that you had in your family growing up. What is something that you want to change? And then what is something that you want to make new in your family? So it's kind of really helping us come up with some goals, having the family come up with their goals without them really knowing it in the beginning, in phase one. And then lastly, this is probably my favorite one.
Structured family assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Structured family assessment's my favorite too. So structured family assessment, we always call it an SFA, and we use a lot of acronyms in FCT. And I always tell families this is really kind of the icing on the cake. This is the ability. I like food analogies.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? It's really putting all the pieces together that we've started with. So this brings the entire family back together. We create a family tree. So we do 3 generations, and we really let the families control that, what that family tree looks like. So it may be a single parent household, and the kids don't have a relationship maybe with mom or dad, and they don't want them on the family tree. That's not a thing we force them to do. Or maybe they have a special uncle. Mom's brother is a big part of their life, and they want him on their family tree. So we don't have hard and fast rules about who can be on that family tree. Sometimes it's mom's best friend, or it's their dog, or their cat. So everybody that they feel like fits in that part of their family tree goes on that family tree. And then we go through that family tree identifying patterns. Is there DV? Is there other types of abuse?
Substance use,
yep, AODA concerns, mental health services. Is there a pattern of depression or anxiety or ADHD? So we help families start to recognize those patterns. Then we get into what we call a fishbowl. So this one is always fun, is where we have 3 questions that we ask families. See if I can remember them off the top of my head. What would you change in your family if you could?
Yep. What's the main problem?
What's the main problem
in your family? So you do individual interviews. So after you do the family tree portion, this is the one activity that we ask the families to come either into the office, if there's space in the office, or a community center like a library or something. We kind of want you out of your comfort zone of your home in this, in case something comes up. If you have a 8-year-old that gets a little irritated, gets mad because somebody's talking about him when they're doing the family tree and he doesn't like what they said, he may get up and stomp his feet and go to his room. Well, if he's at the library, he'll probably just be able to calm down and maybe stay there. Then after the family tree portion, we take them separately out and ask them 3 questions. And they are, what is the main issue? What do you think is the main issue in your family? The second question is, what do you think needs to change? And then the third question is, What are you specifically willing to do to make things better? And then we bring them all back together after they've all had their interviews to do the fishbowl. And that's where we kind of instruct them to look at each other and see if they were able to come to a consensus about what the issues were facing their family. And then the people, like the FCT workers, we are watching them. We're not interacting. If they look at us, like we put our heads down, like they're the fish in the fishbowl, and we're just watching them. And we give them only 5 minutes to see if they're able to come to a consensus. And then we do the reverse fishbowl, and so the practitioners become the fish, and we go over the same thing. And so we, right in front of the family, tell them what we see as the strengths, what we see as kind of like their needs. We're really building on like resiliency factors, really trying to help them come up again or solidify the goals that they want to work on for the next 6 to 9 months in FCT. Did I miss anything?
Nope.
And that whole process is usually at least 2 hours. It really depends on the size of the family. But again, we'll ask them if they want a copy of their family tree, because a lot of times they don't have something like that, or like they can create their own. There's so many things that we do with our families, and we always ask them, like, would you like a copy of this, or would you like to create this? So many of our things are very hands-on, and I think that's why families enjoy it. Yeah. And the thing is, we have to get through all of these different activities in joining before we're able to really start the work. So I tell people that are new to FCT all the time, like new FCT workers, it's like, don't jump in and start giving them solutions until we know them. And so we really take this whole first month of treatment or of FCT to get to know the family and hear their story. Because it's, how can I give you suggestions for how to make improvements if I don't really know what's going on with each member of the family? And we really try to reframe all of the, a lot of times each family you may have, for billing purposes, perhaps you may have an identified client. We really try to reframe every issue that the family is facing as a family issue. And so it's not, oh, Jamie is the problem child. If you just take Jamie out of the home, everything will be better. And we're like, no. Jamie's going to stay in the home. And what can we do to support Jamie and making sure that her needs are met? So we're, again, reframing everything as, like, we don't want somebody to be the scapegoat. We don't want somebody always feeling like everybody's ganging up on them. So there's a lot of observation, too, I would say, in FCT, where we're going in and giving them feedback very early on and saying, I can see certain things. Mm-hmm. So that is phase 1. I don't think we have time really to get into too much of phase 2 of the restructuring phase, but that's, again, where we're really going in and doing we call them enactments, but it's really just a hands-on activity. We'll have different, we come together as a team every single week, and we staff all of our FCT families, and then we give each other ideas for different types of enactments or activities that you can do with each family. You give me a board game, and I can turn it into a therapeutic activity. Absolutely. One of the most fun activities we do is the straw tower, you can do it either with straws or with toothpicks. And so you have a family try to create the tallest tower they can using spaghetti noodles and marshmallows. And it's just really funny to see how that works. And so the first time they do it, it might not be great. Stacy, one time we had a family, the older brother destroyed his sister's tower because her tower was way better than his tower. And he was not okay with that. So a lot of times you'll be able to see different relationships play out by different activities. Or if you have siblings that don't get along, put them on the same team and put them versus their parents. Guess what? They're going to learn how to work together a little bit because they want to beat their parents at whatever the game is. So it's really fun. I kind of miss doing the work in the homes because it's just really fun. It's not your basic outpatient therapy. And again, we've had a lot of success with it. And then, let's see, did we cover everything on there? Oh, Stace, do you want to we talked about the Family Give Back Project.
We covered it.
I think we covered this is our last slide. So we have our upcoming FCT National Conference. It is in the spring in Atlanta, Georgia. So if anybody wants to come to Atlanta, Georgia, would like to learn more about FCT, here's some information about it. And if there are any questions, I think we got about 10 or 15 minutes. So if anybody has any questions.
So we've done it a couple of different ways in Jefferson County. So a lot of our service facilitators, they love FCT, just like you said. And so sometimes they can do a really good job explaining it to certain families, and then other families they just know are going to be resistant to it. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go in and meet with the family and just simply explain, like, what I'm about to explain is going to sound really intense, like a lot of time spent, but keeping in mind it's an intensive model with a short time frame. So I always tell them, if you typically are used to doing outpatient care, where it's an hour a week, if you do that for an entire year, that's 52 hours. So if you multiply that into 6 months, it comes out about the same. So a lot of times it's appealing to them to think about us being in and out in 6 to 9 months. So we really try to capitalize on show them the difference. If you did this for a year on an outpatient, and if you did it for 6 months with FCT.
And then it's kind of the benefit too in that FCT is coming to your home, so you don't actually have to go anywhere. So we're coming to you. It's a lot easier for maybe transportation is an issue. It might be a lot harder to get to outpatient therapy if it's at an office.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Right, absolutely. And sometimes they have questions that really are better answered by someone who is doing FCT. So they might just be like, a certain question. And we found that we just have better success when we as FCT can go in and explain it to those families that are kind of like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. Yeah.
Ideally, we would not see a lot of repeat families because we really want to be able to give you those skills. And that's why we spend so much time in value change in that third phase, really trying to have the families have some ownership over the changes they made in their families. I know in Jefferson County, we have had a few families where we've done a couple FCT booster sessions. Like maybe they had something happen, maybe they had completed FCT and it was very successful. And then they, had a
Significant life change, a divorce, a death in the family.
And so we would kind of go back in there and remind them of all those skills that they already had. And yeah, maybe we need to redo solution cards. Maybe we need to redo eco maps. One thing that I've done with families in the past is at the end of services, if I used a lot of different materials, I'll make a copy of it and put it in a little notebook or a folder for them, or if there were different activities that the family really enjoyed doing, just as a reminder, like, here is your notebook. Here's kind of your activity guide for things that you can do with your family. we have had, a family come back through. It really, so what we would do, if somebody wanted to come back into services, number one, if we had a wait list for services, we would want to make sure that we are serving the other families that have never had FCT first. And it really depends on the state that you're in and how FCT is funded. So like in North Carolina, it would be very, very hard to get another round of FCT with the same family if it hadn't been a significant amount of time. Because in North Carolina, we get 6 months, and that is it. And then something has to kind of happen, like a pretty significant life change for you to be able to maybe request an extra month. Oh, we didn't. Yeah, we guess we didn't really talk about intensity. So typically, we want you seeing families. Each family, your caseloads are pretty small with FCT, about 5 families on average, and you're seeing them usually 2 to 3 times a week. And so it really just we want you the minimum expectation for like our empirical data is 4 weeks or 4 hours per week of face-to-face direct time. And some weeks are going to be more than others. So like if the family's going to be on vacation next week, or if a family got sick, or maybe you got sick as the provider, then like the week after we might have more sessions. Like if you had only had maybe 1 or 2 hours of service for 1 week, then you're going to be making it up later on.
So one of the things that we do, we have transitional indicators that we do between each phase of treatment that they are a part of. So they see their successes. So they're part of talking about moving into those next phases of treatment. So we are always having conversations. We will always have conversations like our goal is you don't need us anymore. Like that is successful treatment. So we're really preparing them from the very beginning that eventually we are not going to be here.
Let me take that one.
You take that one.
Yes, you have to. FCT has to be in your county to be able to access FCT, and that's kind of why my bosses wanted me to come and present at a conference like this. We came up a couple years ago and presented at another Wisconsin County type conference, and I think that's how we brought on Washington County. So it's kind of like every time we go out and make the rounds, I imagine we'll probably get some counties or different organizations reaching out to us. And we have a whole process of how we implement family-centered treatment. So we go in and do a readiness assessment. So we come in and make sure that you have the infrastructure set up. How are you going to pay for this? Do you have startup costs? Do you have a grant? Do you want to talk to other agencies, administrative staff that already have FCT to see how we can make it work? So before I started working up here in Wisconsin with the county orgs, that was something we'd never had. So in North Carolina, we just funded FCT through Medicaid. So if you didn't have Medicaid, you weren't eligible for FCT. And so I do like that we've been able to find some different grants and things. So yes, we're always looking to expand. We have a whole internal team at the foundation, the prospective organization team, and we go in and are always assessing organizations for if they're ready. And a lot of times we'll link them up with other people, other agencies to help them figure out ways that they could fund it in different places. And you guys have had a lot of families that cross county lines.
So I was going to say, a lot of times when we've had families move in Jefferson County, typically we're already anticipating it, right? Like, we're having conversations with them, and if they are towards the end of treatment, like, if they're in value change and they have, maybe 6 weeks of treatment and they move across county lines to Dane or Rock or, Dodge, we'll finish serving them. We're not going to like cut them off and close out treatment. We will find a way to wrap up and finish treatment with them.
We're also always trying to link the families to whatever their step down, if they're going to need a step down service.
Yes.
Like we know, you would know at the county if there was a wait list for outpatient therapy or for some more specialized therapy for maybe one of the individual members of the family. And so we're going ahead and looking 3 months before anticipated discharge to say, like, are you going to need a step down? And if so, let us go ahead and start finding somebody that's going to be a good fit for you. And we do have some FCT magnets. I don't know how we were going to pass those out.
Grab one.
How many are there?
I have no idea.
So we have some magnets. We're going to pass those out. I also have some of my business cards up here if anybody is wanting to like take something back to their organization saying, oh, we really want to get FCT. You could email me and then I could put you in contact with the right person.